Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Hello, hello, Laura.
Hello. Okay, a lot has gone down since we last spoke in October, was it?
It feels like lifetimes.
I know. We have a new, well, not new president.
Yeah.
Pluto entered Aquarius
hmm
and a lot went down. So, how was the month for you?
The month was emotional, I would say. And yeah, we had Mars opposite Pluto at the final degree. My bed bugs came back, a lot of like obsessive thinking, all the good stuff, all the good stuff.
All the usual Mars Pluto transits.
hmm And yeah, I feel like this month we're recording this on the 22nd of November, so we will cover as many news stories as we're able to through that point. But I think even towards the end of October, there were some really important news stories that we want to just like highlight and mention. Something that I thought was very important was on October 25th, the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, said that it would not endorse a candidate. And I think that this is super important because the media is owned by these billionaires that have so much influence and sway. And it's essentially, you know, creating propaganda and I think the editorial board was like wanting to endorse someone. Obviously, it's like a tradition that they've done for a really long time. And yeah, I just thought that that was kind of like a theme that we're going to see more of once Pluto goes into Aquarius, like how these big tech giants influence the spread of information. And that also feels a little like Jupiter and Gemini too.
Mhm. Yeah, and how much of an influence Elon Musk had on Trump's campaign.
I know. Super eek. Yes. And then something else that was super important that not a lot of people are talking about that happened around, I think, the 31st of October. Over 130 Sudanese women unalived themselves by mass suicide to avoid torture and rape by the RSF. And there is this ongoing genocide in Sudan, and I think it just doesn't get any coverage because of like anti-black, you know, ethos that just like runs, permeates through our society. And I think it's really important that we highlight the atrocities and what is going on over there so we can show our solidarity and support and just bring attention to this and make a difference in any way we can. So we're going to include some links in the show notes to offer mutual aid. And yeah, it's just devastating. I mean, there's multiple genocides that we're able to live stream from our telephones. And that in particular, just that headline just really, really rattled me, and I wanted to elevate it.
Yeah. I when I saw that in the notes, I just was thinking about the transits that were happening at the time, and Mars was still in Cancer. And whenever whenever there are news stories around children or women, I do think of that as more of a Mars and Cancer transit. And it was still applying to an opposition to Pluto and Capricorn. So I just remember that week leading up to the new moon in Scorpio, there were a lot of terrible news stories that were going on at the same time.
Yeah, that was a grim new moon for sure.
Very good.
And on the new moon, there was like one of the deadliest floods in Spain in over decades. It killed over 200 people. And, that new moon was in a water sign. Scorpio is a sign of death. So it just was not, it went beyond being symbolic. It was pretty literal.
Yeah. And I remember that month when we were talking about all of the water trines, that there were going to be a lot of stories about water. And unfortunately, in this case, astrology can be literal with
Mhm.
flooding.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, we have the main event, what everyone's probably been wondering what we have to say and what we have to think. The election on the 5th.
So, did you ever make I think I asked you this, did you ever make a public prediction of who was going to win?
No. In our podcast episode last month, I think you asked me and I said I think Trump is going to win. But I never like made a formal prediction. I never made a social media post. Um, I have been telling my friends have been asking me for years, like, what do you think is going to happen? And even when it didn't make sense, I was like, Trump's coming back. And it was all vibes. Like, it was not, I didn't look at his chart. I didn't do like my due diligence. So that was another reason why I never made like a formal prediction. And also, I don't know. I just think when you look at the hatred that exists in this country and the continued protection of all of these like colonial patterns and systems and structures, it's just obvious where we're headed, which is like fascism. Um, so yeah, anyways,
Yeah.
here we are.
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said maybe, or I think Kamala will win the popular vote, but Donald Trump is going to win. But I didn't base that on any astrology, even though I did look at their charts. I just based it, like you said, on vibes. But I was just curious because there were so many Astro girlies on TikTok that their predictions were wrong. And it just brought up a lot of questions for me and the astrological community of like, what are astrology ethics? Because I think the reason why I also didn't make a prediction is I don't do like we're talking about mundane events, but to do these kind of electional astrology predictions, you need to have a really good understanding of mundane astrology, which I think both of us do more natal astrology. And I just wasn't comfortable basing my skills on predicting a president. And and then another question came up of, so maybe you can answer some of these if you wanted to, like the astrological ethics, should everyone be able to predict elections? What are predictions actually for? And what is astrology's role?
Yeah, I think that making a prediction in terms of like the election, it's very delicate and it's a sensitive topic. And because so many people are emotionally involved and a lot of people's lives are at risk, you have to be very careful because you can very much veer into fear mongering, right? And causing additional anxiety and stress. And I think astrology is a tool to combat those things, or it should be. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't say anything because I just didn't want to add to the noise. Like, and people, humans, us astrologers, are not perfect. You know, we're all flawed. We're all learning. We're humans. That's part of the human experience. And so I just think predicting when my baby is going to crawl is one thing versus predicting the fate of the country and so many people's lives who are at stake with that election. And um, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I think.
Mhm.
What about you?
Oh gosh. So I ended up watching Sam Reynolds' video about the election, who was your teacher, right? And
Hmm.
I, first of all, I really respect him and I respect his practice. And he showed a couple of ancient techniques to actually that he uses to predict the president. And he shows like how he did it and all of the different techniques that he used said that it would be a Trump win. And so it is a different technique when you're doing natal astrology versus like mundane astrology. And so I thought that was like such a great takeaway for me because I learned something. And I think the biggest thing I took away from the Astro Girlies getting it wrong is bias. and
Mhm.
not really understanding the dynamics of where we're headed towards as a country, and how you almost have to, and I tried to say this on my TikTok video, but of course, like, people are very heated right now and they just want to blame somebody, they want to scapegoat somebody. But I was saying that we really need to understand the psychology of people who did vote for him,
Mhm.
because an overwhelming amount of people did. Like, he won the popular vote by a lot. So
Yeah.
that kind of has to say something about people's psychology and where they're voting from right now. So that's just what I took away from it. So what can astrology be used for in this case? I think it's like observing cycles, and I'm always kind of like, why would we want to repeat this? So maybe we can take this time, and I thought we did this in 2016, apparently we didn't, to really understand like what it is about Trump that people keep going back to.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
that narcissistic ex that people keep going back to, and you're like, why?
We've got a lot to unpack over the next few years, and a lot is going to happen. And like you said about cycles, um, Uranus will enter Gemini for the first time since 1941 through 1945. That's taking place next year. And that's like the height of fascism, right? And when we have Neptune moving back into Aries, that's going to be the first time since 1861 through 1875. And that's the time of the Civil War and great divisive energy in this country. So, and I say that not to fearmonger because I believe Sam Reynolds is the person who said this, who I heard this from, but astrology doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Mhm.
And so that's not to say the same exact things are going to happen, but you can really pick up on clues that what's going to unfold and what's to come. And that's why it's really important to pay attention to these cycles.
And like you said, the clues that are repeating, so that you can actually do something about it to change. And what's exciting, okay, so if there's like one optimistic thing I can say, is that if we understand like what's to come, like, it hasn't been manifested yet. So we have the power to really weave in what we want to experience in these next couple years, which honestly, I think our century is going to be defined by what happens in 2025 and 2026, just based on the astrology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to do a year ahead podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that will be one for all of you to tune into because 2025 is bananas.
OMG.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything
Um,
else you wanted to share about the election?
the only other thing, just I did this like deep dive into Hitler's chart and
Because
when
who
he,
wouldn't?
because why not? Just while I'm taking care of my baby, pumping my boobs, Googling Hitler's birth chart. Oh my God. But similarities. And yeah, I looked into the date when he came into power, which was January 30th, 1933. And I noticed it was during a Mars retrograde in Virgo, and that was his 12th house. And Trump is coming into power during a Mars retrograde in Cancer, is when he is, going to, what's it called, the inauguration and stuff. So, that will also be in his 12th house. So I just thought that was very eerie. Again, just noticing cycles. And yeah, I just hope that you and I were saying before this call that like Pluto and Aquarius ultimately is all about the people coming together and reclaiming our collective power. And we're at the very beginning of that journey. And it's not going to be like snap our fingers and we're there. We are entering some dark times and we have to hit rock bottom. And some people, especially white women in this country, are like thinking, oh, we already did hit rock bottom, or and it's like, no, this has been going on for centuries. people of the global majority have been just impacted by colonialism, white supremacy. And so this is a longer process and we can get there, but we are at the beginning of it, is my opinion.
Yeah. And to all the wary white women, The Handmaid's Tale, as Margaret Atwood said, already happened to women in history, like throughout history. And we don't have to accept that. I'm always like, why are we going to allow that to happen when we can just like defend ourselves and fight back? That's just my personal opinion as an Aries, but
Love.
we'll just see.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like,
I love love.
I'm starting martial arts training if anybody
Yeah.
wants to know.
It's a good time. I know. I'll go back to kickboxing.
Yeah.
All
Oy.
right, what's next?
So you mentioned that your bed bugs came back.
Mm.
And what was it about that day that you think they came back?
So that was the last day that the moon had any aspect to Pluto and Capricorn. So on the day that they came back, the moon was in Aries and it formed a square to Pluto and Capricorn for the last time in our lifetime. So it was kind of like final boss energy, I feel like. Um, and totally messing with my head because my ninth house is Aries. So it was just very much messing with my mental state and my beliefs and just my optimism.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe they're gone. I have not been bit since November 13th. Knock on wood. Who's counting, right? I count like every hour. I have like a log, like a tally. Um, but yeah, so I'm feeling good. But yeah, that was a doozy.
I was telling Stephanie that this Mars transit and the opposition to Pluto was just making her more obsessed with her enemy, the bed bugs, and how she was
Yes.
studying them.
Yes, I know every single fact. The bedbug man came here and I was like rattling off facts to him and he was like, "Do you want to work for us?" I was like, "Possibly. I
And
could read you your website."
yeah, and Mars is the ruler of your fourth house. So they were like taking over your home and like your
Absolutely.
private space. I just thought that was so literal. And the reason why I know the date that the bed bugs came back is because Stephanie and I like text each other like what happens during these crazy transits. And I'm like, the astrology is astrologying.
I know. I know. And then in that moment, you're like, "Oh, that's cute." Like it's always nice when you see astrology come to life, even if it is something grim or disappointing, but well, not always nice, but sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
And that was one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, at least this is checking out."
Yeah. On that note, I noticed a lot of stuff happening on the full moon in Taurus. And that was the same day Saturn stationed direct. On a personal note, this was the day that so I'm currently staying with my parents, living with my parents. So Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, transiting my fourth house. And my mom hands me this paper, which she says she's gotten this notice multiple times. But for some reason on this day, she decided to like show it to me. And it was basically a notice that our water has high levels of PFOAs, which is basically like, I mean, if you've ever watched the movie Aaron Brockovich or that movie with Mark Ruffalo about how like Teflon was basically poisoning that town's water. I forget the name of the movie, but it was like that. And like my stomach dropped and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. So my two friends from college that I was having dinner with, they happened to be wastewater management engineers in the tri-state area where I live. And so I
Oh
showed,
my God. Talk about synchronicities. What are
right?
the odds?
I was like, hello, engineering. And I showed them the paper and they were basically like, yeah, this isn't good.
Oh my gosh.
Like, okay, so what should I do? And one of them, so basically PFOAs is it's a forever chemical and it's probably been in like it's probably in every person's water in the United States. But it's
Mm-hmm.
something that I guess our county or our state just decided to test for. And they found very high levels, meaning that when you're overexposed to them, it causes cancer and obviously cancer, right? And just like different organ failures. It's very much Erin Brockovich, if you've ever seen that movie. And so they have to legally report these findings. And so I was like, okay, like, what do we do? And she just said, you can't do anything, unfortunately, except maybe to buy a PFOA filter. And the PFOA forever chemicals are stuff that you can find like in the nonstick pans or like even in your makeup. Like it's everywhere,
Mm.
it's in everything. So yeah, it's just one of those things too where going back to like Pluto and Aquarius about like, do we even have freedom, right? Like we're all trying to fight for liberation, but here in the US of the land of the free, and I'm putting that in quotes, like, are we really free if we don't have access to clean water even?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the fact that that full moon, that was, the moon represents home, and Uranus was a part of that full moon, which was like a shock. I was like actually shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shouldn't have been shocked, but it was very disturbing.
It's
And
jarring.
yeah, I was like, oh, I was even more mad about everything that's going on.
Understandably. Understandably.
That was my personal full moon.
Ugh. It was a wild full moon. But
uh,
yeah, that's a huge deal.
yeah. What about you? Did you have anything happen?
So it was in my 10th house, and I think I just like went on like a TikTok spree and was making like unhinged content and like showing up in my pajamas and just talking about who knows what. And then I also changed my pronouns to she, they.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
congratulations. That
thank you.
okay, now I remember you did kind of come out, right?
Oh yeah, and then I was like, by the way, I'm a queer person, which is like something I've like always known, but I've never shared because like I married a man, I'm in this relationship, and I've always thought like, well, I've never dated a woman, and do I deserve to speak out? And it was something I always had this like internal battle with, but then I was like, of course I deserve to speak out, you know? And it was very Uranian. It was like this liberating moment. And I just realized like everything that's going on in this country, it's going to shit. If I can make anyone else feel seen and confident in who they are and their identity, then I want to do that. And so that was like the final push to just be like, hey, I'm
Wow.
pansexual and these are my pronouns.
Congratulations. That's such a big deal.
Thank you.
And your husband knew, obviously, right?
Yes.
Was he
Yes.
surprised?
No, he wasn't surprised. No, he knew. We've like talked about this. When we first started dating, I was like, "Oh yeah, da da da." But
But like anybody else in your friendship groups or family, were they like, Stephanie?
um my like close friends knew, like I've like talked about it, but I haven't ever done like this like big public post. I haven't really talked to anyone in my family specifically about it. I talked to like some of my aunts and uncles about it like a couple months ago. It like came up in passing, but like sexual identity is like not something you talk about in the Mexican culture. It's like as far as like as far as my mom knows and my family knows, they probably still think I'm a virgin and like Sloan just appeared in my lap in my arms.
Conception.
Yeah, immaculate conception. So it's just not anything I ever talked about.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I think that was also played a very big part in me like having fear and being like scared of, yeah, like coming out.
That is,
But very liberating. Pushed through that with that Uranian energy.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, ever since I was little, I was like, I'm just not a girl. Like I just never like, not that I'm not a girl, but like I never identified. Everyone was called me a tomboy because that was like the word for it back then. Um, or some word that, people used to throw around.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I'm feeling grateful. And that was in my 10th house, right? So very,
Yes.
yeah.
It was a very public announcement. I remember when I watched that video, I was like, oh my God. Because I
Yes.
could just tell how like liberating that must have felt just coming out with it, literally.
Yeah. 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 So big full moon over here. And it just seemed like there was so much going on around the world too.
Yeah, so actually, the full moon was conjunct Algol, which for me is a feminine liberation demon star. I know it has a very patriarchal story and name, but it just also reminded me of the Haka heard around the world. And I'm sure if you're on social media and the same algorithm, you've seen it by now. But Hana Rohiti, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name because she deserves to be known, might be Clark, the youngest MP in New Zealand Parliament. She started chanting, I hope chanting is the right word, a haka while she tore up an anti-Maori bill. And it was so like I got goosebumps when I saw
Same.
video.
Same. Powerful. I was like, this is Pluto and Aquarius at 0
Yeah.
degrees. Yeah.
And I thought it was so significant too because Taurus rules the throat and just using her voice in that way. And the way that, part of the haka is making these very intimidating facial expressions. And then the symbolism of like tearing up the paper felt very like no colonizer.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not, I'm sure this is not the right word, but it's not a dance, but there's like choreography to it, and that also feels very Venusian and Taurus. So it was all so symbolic, so powerful, and it's really like caught on.
Mm-hmm. And she's only 22. And I tried to look up her chart, but there was no like birth data. It just said that she was born in September. So I'm just wondering like what transits were like hitting her chart at that specific time. But I was wowed by her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was again the haka heard around the world. Like it was a battle cry for all indigenous people to stand up and protect. Literally, I saw videos of translating what she was saying, and it was basically like, you cannot kill us on our land. Yeah.
So powerful. I just got goosebumps.
And then I noticed on that same day, three of Malcolm X's daughters are suing the CIA, FBI, NYPD for their father's assassination in 1965, which would mark his almost 100-year birthday because he was born in 1925. Malcolm X had a 28-degree Taurus sun.
Mm.
Full moon was activating his sun.
And I saw Adama's post of Lilith Astrology.
Mhm.
She pointed out that when he was murdered, it was when Saturn was in Pisces. And this is the day that Saturn in Pisces stationed direct.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Shout out to Adama.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I just think that is also so like um what is it, like Plutonian, because something coming up to the surface, like things being revealed. I think you mentioned that last month. And I don't know if you're on conspiracy TikTok, you know that he was assassinated by nefarious means. Malcolm
Yeah.
X.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And then in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a mountain collapsed. Literally, you're in Taurus, right? Full moon in Taurus, land, Uranus is like sudden
Yeah.
discovery of copper. And my first thought was like, oh God, the US is gonna come up with some story of how they need to have democracy there and like take over that copper mine. So my thoughts are with the peoples of the Congo. But yeah, I just think it's another thing. It's just another piece of proof that people in the Congo should own their own wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally such a wealthy, well resourced place that just keeps getting pillaged by European and the Western world.
Oh my God, all of these tech companies should be paying millions and billions of dollars to the people of the Congo. And instead, they're just extracting, and fueling genocides. And don't upgrade your iPhone,
I know.
buy used.
Mhm. Refurbished. I know I have to buy a refurbished laptop. I've been holding off for so long.
Because our money is power
It really is.
and it works. So,
Yeah, I just thought that was such a full moon in Taurus, conjunct Uranus. And then also the full moon in Taurus was conjunct Kamala Harris's Jupiter exactly at 24 degrees. And it was revealed that her campaign spent $1 billion and multi millions with celebrity appearances. I was like, excuse me? How do you spend $1 billion in
yeah,
not even in like 3 months or something? Because she wasn't campaigning for that long.
really wild, really wild. And then we had Donald Trump unveiling some of his cabinet, which is fucking insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the full moon was conjunct Donald Trump's midheaven also at 24 degrees of Taurus, which I think is interesting, that synastry between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And yeah, like you said, he started announcing his cabinet, which there's this funny meme going around of Voldemort with his like people.
I love it.
um,
It's true.
True. And since the full moon was conjunct Uranus, again, this is a planet about technology. He announced that Elon Musk was going to be on his cabinet. So I think it's just gonna, show again, like what you were saying about tech billionaires being more involved, which they always have been, right? But I think this is like also Pluto and Aquarius, them seeping into our government as well.
Well, it's like the veil is pulled off. There's no more hiding it. They're just like, yep, this person works in the government now. And like I think it's also very Uranian that like his picks are so odd. Like he's picked Dr. Oz, the TV personality. He picked like a WWE, like I don't know what she does for WWE, but she used to work for corporate or something like that. Um, and obviously Elon Musk, and then a child sex offender.
I
It's
know.
like, holy
I
shit.
know. It's crazy, but not crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
I think if you're used to if you've been paying attention and you're used to this kind of like clown show, it's just like, okay, who is he going to pick next?
Yeah. Yeah.
So November 17th, so the full moon was also opposing Biden's 12th house stellium of Scorpio stuff. And because Biden is a Scorpio, and he quote unquote allows Ukraine to launch US supplied missiles into Russia. And I just put like, why? Question mark. And I just think I don't know what the word is, but he's still president, right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
still has 2 months left. Well, now kind of a month. And like, where has he been? He just shows up to give money to foreign places and says, okay, launch this missile. And it kind of goes with this theory of actually what my friend Tasha Begg, who's an astrologer, brought this up, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. Is like when he was going through his Saturn return, he lost his wife and I think child in a sudden car crash. And I think that he never fully processed that grief. And now he's like unconsciously being violent and like revenge like to other people. What do you think of this theory? Because I can't stop thinking about it.
I just think his legacy is a flop. I just think his 12th house and 6th house like axis and the prominent placements in his chart are so loud, and like this was fated to be his legacy, is that he is a genocidal flop of a president.
Yeah. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, he also has a Taurus moon. It's like at 1 degree, but
In the 6th house.
the sixth house. Yeah. Which is an exalted moon, but in the sixth house, oh,
Yeah.
all that Scorpio. I don't know. I just hope I don't know. I hope he finds some peace somewhere in
I
some.
hope he doesn't. TVH. Just saying. Love it.
I hope he doesn't, but I don't know. I just feel like this is why people who are elected to be leaders should have some kind of psychological and emotional and spiritual I don't know, an audit or like a
Yeah.
counseling, because it's like I think there something happened to him for sure.
For sure. For sure.
Yikes. Okay, the last thing I have, which just happened yesterday, the ICC issues arrest warrant for Netanyahu, aka Milikowski, and Gallant. And November 21st was the Sun in Sagittarius sextile Pluto and Aquarius. But that was like the first aspect that Pluto and Aquarius made. And Netanyahu is a Sagittarius rising.
I just read that. I just read that in your note, Sagittarius. Yes.
It's a Sagittarius. And he just turned 75, so he's in a fourth house perfection year. And I was mentioning to Stephanie that I listened to the 8-hour episode from Chris Brennan on the Astrology podcast about the fourth house. And the fourth house can also mean things like death as well, like in ancient astrology. And I don't know. Again, I don't want to put things out there, but I think this is his death. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I got to look at his chart, but I'm going to do that the second we get off.
Yeah, he's a Sagittarius rising with Libra moon and sun, because he was born on a new moon. And I do find it interesting that this is happening during a Mercury pre-shadow, and Mercury will be transiting his first house. So I think there's going to be, maybe while it's retrograde, we hear something. And again, I'm projecting that he will get arrested or something will happen.
I think so. Well, he can't go to like what 123 countries, or he'll legally have to get arrested, which is fantastic. I think this is beautiful that this took place when the sun met with Pluto in a gentle and supportive way, because it's like a powerful unveiling of the truth and revealing his like true identity. Like the sun is your identity, and he's a war criminal. And yeah, interesting that this is happening during the pre-shadow. I also read today that the US is like denouncing it and being like, he's not a war criminal, which barf, kill me. So I think whatever unfolds is going to have to do with the US in some way.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about how Pluto's in his third house of like your local neighborhood. And so he's either going to have to stay in Israel or the US, which, if you didn't know, Netanyahu like grew up partly in Philadelphia, in like a wealthy suburb of Philadelphia. So he also went to MIT, which is a US university.
Wow.
So I feel like that either means he's going to have to like come back to the US, because they're not going to arrest him here, right? Or stay in Israel.
We'll report back next month.
Yeah. And like Stephanie said, we're recording this on November 22nd because I am traveling internationally again, as Sagittarius placements do. And I didn't want to risk having like spotty internet service. So those were some of the news stories up until yesterday. And then for the next month, we'll try to recap if anything else happens.
Do you want to share why you're traveling? Because it is so
Oh,
important, and if there is any way that we can help your travels as well.
thank you. I am traveling with a group led by my friend Sasha Heron, and we are supporting families in Cairo who have been displaced from Gaza. And my friend Sasha, she lived in Cairo for a decade, and she also lived in the West Bank of Palestine. So she has a lot of connections with Palestinians and Egyptians. And she's leading a group of us there to Cairo. But part of the trip was that we would raise money for displaced families. And because they're displaced, they can't work because they're technically like refugees. And now it's the winter time for them in Egypt, which isn't as cold as New York, but still like they don't have they can't work. So it's like how they're gonna pay for rent and stuff like that. So I'm leaving on Sunday. This will be my first time in Egypt, which I'm super excited about. And Stephanie and I have had past lives there together as we've shared when we first met.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, by the way, I feel like it's weird not going with you because I always imagined we
I'm
would.
gonna be there with you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I just had a dream. I forgot to tell you. I had this dream like a couple nights ago where you came to me and you're like, I'm going, I don't remember where it was, but it was like a foreign land. You're like, I'm going here tomorrow. And I was like, I'll come with you. And I just followed you there.
Oh my
So
God.
I feel like that's like I'm kind of come with you in spirit.
You're astro traveling
Yeah.
as you always do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this won't be the first time that I go. And so next when you go, I'll just follow you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm really excited because going to Egypt has been a lifelong dream of mine. Like I've always been obsessed with Egypt, which is why I brought it up to you because I was like, I must have past lives there. And I'm really excited because I've always waited for the right moment and the right reason to go. And so this opportunity came up this summer and I had to apply for it and interview for it. And yeah, I'm going and I'm really excited. So uh,
Amazing.
I've already raised all the money, so there's nothing that anybody needs to do. But I think what I want to say is donations and mutual aid is just like a temporary band aid because we're like, I say this to people that what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank is a US problem. Like it is our responsibility to dismantle occupation and the Zionist project. It's like a US thing
Yeah.
because Israel is a US colony. And so like fundraising and donations and mutual aid is like it's just a little band-aid, but the overall goal is to first end the occupation, is to first get a ceasefire and then end the occupation, which is not going to happen overnight. But I just want to encourage people that if you can't donate, because not everybody can, to just keep on learning about what's going on and try to use your voice to at least speak to the people around you. And I try to do that every opportunity I get. And yes, it kills the vibe for sure. I love it.
Yeah.
I'll be having a friendly dinner. I'll be like, did you know our tax dollars are funding genocide right now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Of course. Thank you. And I can't wait to hear about your trip and your experience. You're going to
I
change
will
so many
report
lives.
back. Yeah, I will report back next month.
Yeah.
So, shall we begin our December?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we start off on December 2nd with Venus and Capricorn trine Uranus and Taurus at 24 degrees.
And to your point in the notes, this is the same degree as the full moon in Taurus. And I think this is super cute. I think this is it's another Uranus activation, but it's a trine, so it's like not as jarring. Um, I think anytime Capricorn and Taurus comes together, it has to do with our sense of security, the way we resource ourselves, nourish ourselves, so we can show up and take care of one another as a collective. So, um, some basic B thoughts that come along with like Venus trine Uranus. I would say like try something new in your relationship, like explore some of your kinks or fantasies if you feel comfortable. Like trying something new, running into someone unexpected, taking a risk, those
Mhm.
kinds of things.
Yeah. I love how you always say basic B before giving a delineation. But yeah, I think last month we mentioned that Venus in Capricorn is a little more like traditional and thinks long term. And so when it trines Uranus, it's like, let's try something different. Let's switch it up, you know? Um, I do think that this is a sweet because like trines are flowy. It's like a flowing harmonious aspect, so I don't know if you necessarily have to do anything, but you'll just like feel really good and embodied and grounded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a sweet way to start off the month.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the 4th, we'll have Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius forming an opposition with Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. And this is going to bring us back to November 18th, the last time these two planets had an opposition with one another. This time around, it's taking place at 16 degrees. So if you have any planets or placements in the mutable signs around 16 degrees, you'll feel it the most intensely. And you'll really want to pay attention because it's going to happen one more time after Mercury retrograde ends, and that will be December 26th. So this is the second act of this story. You'll have one more final act and chapter at the end of December. Um, when Mercury is opposite Jupiter, you could have a lot of ideas. You could have a lot of inspiration, but it can also be really easy to just miss the details, or you could get caught up in this momentum and then it's hard to sustain. It's a great time to open your mind, to discuss your beliefs, to help shift other people's perspectives, especially like worldviews. So, yeah, talk
Mm-hmm.
about what matters to you, raise awareness.
When this happened, well, when it was leading up to this aspect, I just noticed so many people on social media talking over each other, and like there was this thing going around where people were fighting about the election and giving their views and arguing, right? It's very Mercury and Sagittarius, like um being very philosophical about your belief systems without necessarily considering the other side. And anytime I say consider the other side, people like just shut down. So I'm wondering if something from that time is going to come back now that Mercury is retrograde, for
Mm.
people to like take a maybe like what you said back then or something that was said back then, now people are walking back from.
Mm.
People were so
Hmm.
mean.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, don't have this on the internet. It took
Yeah, the
forever.
internet's forever, babe.
And like both Mercury and Jupiter are not in, they're in opposite signs of each
Mm.
other. So it's like, oi. Um, so yeah, just be careful what you say sometimes, I think.
Yeah. And you can also overcommit, overpromise, this kind of feels like an exhausting energy. I think by the end of the day on November 18th, I was like gassed. I was like, I need a nap. I got to call it quits. I need to be in a dark room by myself.
Yeah.
So that can happen as well.
Mhm. On the same day, the sun in Sagittarius. So the December 4th is a little messy. So the sun in Sagittarius will square Saturn in Pisces at 13 degrees. And so that alone, too, right? The sun square, there's something that, there's a no.
There's a no. You can be really mean to yourself when the sun squares Saturn. It's like you can be really, really hard on yourself, think you're not worthy of your desires or you're not doing enough. I think this is an important day to like proactively remind yourself that we are all works in progress. Perfectionism is made up by white supremacy, and we all are here to grow and evolve.
Mhm.
Sometimes, occasionally, you can like receive recognition for your hard work and effort too. So it's not all bad. Sometimes some sort of like responsibility pops up and it like captures your attention or your focus, or you need to make some sort of sacrifice or important decision. But in general, this is like not the day to profess your undying love for someone. Yeah.
No, no, yeah. And all this mutable energy is just messy and chaotic. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also on December 4th, Venus in Capricorn will sextile Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees. That's cute.
That's like the only saving grace. Because I
Yeah.
would say normally that would be a time to profess your love to someone.
Mhm.
However, with everything else that's going on that day, yeah, not so much. But you could find healing through engaging in like a creative art or practice or hobby. There is potential for like compassionate interactions with other people. This is a great time to work with your divination practices and your intuition. Maybe commit to a divination practice since we have Saturn's involvement. So, really like making it a ritual, a sacred ritual.
Mhm. Oh, I like that. Yeah. I like that it's a sextile, so it's like sextiles are like really good for hanging out with friends that you like to hang out with because it's a 60-degree angle. And I would say, I don't normally say this, but this is a good day to hang out with like-minded people.
Yeah, otherwise you're gonna get in a fight.
You're gonna
That's
get,
just guaranteed. We promise
yeah.
you'll fight with someone.
Oh my gosh. December 5th, the sun in Sagittarius will conjunct Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius at 14 degrees.
I like this because it is the halfway point of our Mercury retrograde journey. It is like a brief and temporary reprieve from Mercury retrograde because when they're forming a cazimi, and when anytime a planet sits in the heart of the sun, I think cazimi is an Arabic word for heart of the sun, it gets strength and it can, give us clarity, an aha moment, a divine download. So there's some sort of important realization that happens today, or a decision you want to make, or even exciting news.
Mhm. Something that I realized in right before a Kazemi happens is that a lot of information starts to get revealed before the Kazemi. I don't know if this is your experience
Mm.
because the planet Mercury is basically in the beams of the sun, so it's getting like burned up. And I think of everything in the universe having a life death phase. So it's almost like the sun is burning up Mercury before it gets renewed by the sun in the Kazemi. And what I've noticed is like hidden truths coming out right before Kazemi as well, because it's something that's like trying to, like almost like a death rattle, like something is trying to come out before the death of the sun being reborn. This is just my own personal observation because, I think we've said to get downloads during a Kazemi, but I've also noticed that things come out right before one too.
Mm-hmm. And I would say gossip in particular with this one,
Mhm.
because we have Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, which can
Yeah.
struggle a bit. So there might also be, yeah, like a lot of hidden truths that come out, but also use your discernment because there could also be a lot of hot goss too.
Yeah. Which I know you love. I'm always
Leo,
like,
come on.
happy.
I've actually been more intentional of like not being into the hot gossip. I'm like not reading the celebrity stories. I'm like, because they probably don't like that, and I wouldn't like it either. So I'm trying to be more mindful.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
but I love it. You're right.
It's always fun, especially when you all know the same people. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it? Okay. So on December 6th, I feel like this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Mars goes retrograde in Leo at 6 degrees. I think,
Wah wah.
right? I feel like we've all been talking about this for so long.
Yes. Well, this is like the main event of 2024, and it has been a year-long buildup, and Mars entered Leo, I think November 3rd. So
Mhm.
it's been in Leo for a while. We've got our clues, we've got, you know, ideas of what might come for us during the retrograde. But yeah, I think it's going to be really important to know that this retrograde is going to last until February 23rd of 2025 and the post retrograde shadow period. So that means like getting back to the same exact point where it stations retrograde on December 6th doesn't take place until May 2nd of 2025. So this is a long
No.
doozy of a transit.
No.
And the last time we had a Mars retrograde in Leo was December 2009 through March 2010.
Ooh, that's good to know.
So if you can think back to annoyances, frustrations, difficulties from that time period, similar themes might come up.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, when Mars is retrograde in Leo, I think we can struggle with our confidence. We can lose our creative inspiration. Um, our ego struggles with our ego.
I was enjoying Mars and Leo way more than when it was in Cancer. Like when it moved into Leo, I was like, vibe shift.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I was going through some stuff. Well, because Mars was going through my eighth house, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting retracing those steps back. Woof.
I know. But stay tuned because that's like a biggie day.
Mhm.
And on the same day, Mercury in Sagittarius is going to form a square with Saturn in Pisces.
Mhm.
And this is like right after the Kazemi too. So that kind of delivers some more serious news. It can also just kind of like put you in a little bit of a depressing mood. It's temporary, just know that. But yeah, it can kind of like lower the vibes. You could be hit
Mhm.
with a reality check, feel a temporary sense of rejection, a no. Um, and then on the same day, Venus enters Aquarius.
Mhm.
You are our resident expert. Dish.
Yes. Well, I was gonna say too, with Mercury, like Mars going retrograde and Mercury in Sagittarius, you might feel like you've gone back a few steps, like,
Mm,
and you might feel like, oh, I feel like I am regressing back.
hmm
But you're not. You're just reviewing stuff.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process. And yes, I'm a resident Venus in Aquarius person. And I would say, as a Venus in Aquarius person, I love through intellect. And every time someone asks me what I'm attracted to in men, I'm like, ugh. I'm like, the fact that I'm attracted to men, woof, uh, is intellectual curiosity.
Mm,
Because there's nothing that gets my heart pumping more than like people who are just curious and interested in life, and also centering friendships as a form of love as well. So Aquarius is about community and networks. It is about people along the margins. So when Venus enters that sign, it's it's like focusing your heart and your, I guess, attractiveness to those things.
And Venus is a planet of values. So
Mhm.
it can be a very powerful time. I think it's always important to reflect and live by and embody your values and to stand up for injustices. But even more so, you might get that like, you know, your seat might be hot, or what's it called? Like you feel a fire under your butt, or I don't know what what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I
Yeah.
know what you're saying.
Yeah. And then the next day on December 7th, Venus in Aquarius forms a conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah,
Wowza.
wowza. And this also happened on February 17th earlier this year, if you remember that. So this is like the closing conjunction.
The beginning of a new cycle too.
Yeah, and the beginning of a new one. So Venus Pluto conjunctions have this like fatal attraction kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely had that. Well, because also
Oh yeah.
right. And in February, there was also a Mars Pluto conjunction and a Mars Venus conjunction. So in Aquarius. So I don't know if I was getting more of the Mars Pluto or or all of them at once. But it was like the first time I was attracted to somebody in a really long time. And he was a man. I was like, oh my God.
Uh-huh. It was very Venus Pluto.
Yeah. I was very attracted and it was like shocking to my senses because another thing with Venus and Aquarius people is like the long game. Like you become friends with
Mhm.
them first and then you like are like, "Oh, I like you," you know? But this was very stark.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. My Venus in Virgo is like, what?
The
But impressive.
attraction?
Impressive. No, the long game, the
Oh,
becoming
the long game.
friends first. I'm like, these are my deal breakers. Do you meet, like very like this is
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
But
No, my Venus is ruled by Saturn and my
yeah.
Saturn is Libra, so they have mutual reception. So it is like one day I'm just like, wait, I like you. Like 5 years later.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's why I need a Venus and Pluto, or maybe not as intense, but I need these transits to like, make me realize,
Shake it up.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
faster.
Yep. Yep. Um, yeah, definitely your close personal relationships can be transformed, and you may also deal with like power struggles and power dynamics as well.
Mhm. And also, depending on where Aquarius is in your chart, it's like you might um you might want to speak up for your value or ask for more money or quit a job that's not paying you enough money. Like I had that experience also this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it can manifest in so many different ways.
Yep, 100%.
Then on the same day, the sun in Sagittarius will oppose Jupiter in Gemini at 16 degrees.
Yes. That is like a full moon moment. So
Yeah.
I think it's a little messy and chaotic, but I think it also brings like good news about whatever goals you started earlier this year when the sun and Jupiter formed a conjunction, which I think was in Taurus. But this is like the full moon moment of that. So generally, it does bring like good vibes,
Mm-hmm.
but this could also leave you with a hangover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Jupiter is still retrograde, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think good news, or not good news, but because I don't want to conflate Jupiter to good news or Jupiter to good when it is just really about expansion, right? But um, you could find something out.
Yes. And I think this is also another one of those like powerful days to speak up about your beliefs.
Mhm.
And because there's that potential to change someone's opinions or help them understand, like by sharing your lived experience.
Mhm. Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm.
So the same day, so December 7th is another multi-aspect day. Neptune retrograde in Pisces ends at 27 degrees. So what do you think about Neptune? Do you think retrogrades bring more clarity or less clarity? Does it do like the opposite when it's retrograde?
I feel like the last time we reported on this specific thing, like our answers were both like, I don't know. And I think like that's the most Neptunian thing, right? Is like there I don't know if clarity is the right word, but there's some sort of like uh maybe some sort of sweet like something involving your dreams or your hopes or your ideals, what you hope for in the future could take place, some sort of compassionate conversation, an act of generosity. You might feel just really connected to the universe and noticing like more mystical
Mhm.
things that just show up in like really mundane and ordinary places. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know about clarity. What do you think?
So I meant to look up like the astrological chart of the Wizard of Oz,
Mm,
but what I was thinking about Neptune in preparation for this is Neptune is like film, right? And like
mm,
Hollywood. And what's coming out now is because the Wicked movie is coming out today, I think. All
yeah.
of the horrific things that the original cast went through in filming The Wizard of Oz. Have you not heard this?
No.
Oh my God. Okay, I went through a rabbit hole today. So, in the filming of The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland, she was like 16 years old, and they said that she was too chubby. So, they made her go on a diet of cigarettes and chicken noodle soup. And then she was like basically like sexually harassed by the Munchkins and who were like in their 30s. And then the witch, the green witch, the wicked witch of the west, the tin man, and like all of the cast members had health issues from the paint, like the toxic paint that they had to wear. And then for the snow they use asbestos. Like all of these secrets are coming out about how like toxic and violent Hollywood was and probably still is. And I
Mhm.
just think that's why I was asking about the clarity, because it's like Neptune has been retrograde, and I'm wondering if like the truth is coming out about Hollywood and film and all of this.
Mm. Could like sweep some illusions away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Oh my gosh. Ew, so sad.
Oh my God, it was so sad. And then you just like learn more about Judy Garland's life, and I'm just like, oh my God, she was totally like most actresses at that time were just taken advantage of. It was really,
This checks out,
yeah.
unfortunately.
So I'm wondering if more of that kind of thing is going to come out. And also, I think Neptune also represents the music industry, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I went down a rabbit hole about Diddy's bodyguard being found dead. Have you heard that?
Oh, no.
Of pneumonia?
Oh,
Like how many?
just like Kim Porter. Oh my gosh.
Brittany Murphy.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to go. I need to jump into this rabbit hole. You need to send me a trail.
It's such a Neptunian thing of like going down these like rabbit holes.
I love it. I love a good like conspiracy theory because I think they're all true.
I do too. I definitely think there's some truth to them,
Yeah.
honestly. But yes, so natally, I have a Sun square Neptune, and so if it's not like drugs that I'm into this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it.
um. So anyway, Neptune retrograde in Pisces ends, and again, we don't know, but
You
maybe,
tell us. Let
maybe
us know how it shows up for you. I have Neptune in my eighth house, and I think last time when the retrograde ended, I like got a gift. I think Joey like bought me this new microphone because my other microphone broke. So maybe something sweet like that happens.
okay. I'm gonna lean into that. I'm going to lean into that a lot. I just remembered, and because I don't remember if it was Neptune or Saturn, because I have both transiting my fourth, we had a lot of flooding or like water issues in my home. It could be both.
Mm-hmm.
So on December 12th, Venus in Aquarius opposes Mars retrograde in Leo at 5 degrees.
This is this is horrendous. Uh Mars, yeah, Venus opposite Mars in general is no fun.
Mhm.
Lots of fights, like unavoidable. But with Mars retrograde, I just think it's going to make it even worse. Or if you don't comment and like speak up about what is frustrating or angering you, it is
Mhm.
going to eat you alive.
Yeah. And at this point, Mars is applying to an opposition to Pluto again.
Yeah.
So the energy is building up again to the opposition. Um, yeah.
Sometimes Venus opposite Mars, it's like you're fighting or you're fucking. That's what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's why I was like hoping it was more of like the purring, like
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a little bit. And, I hope the fighting comes before and then the fucking, but sometimes it could be the other way around. And that's the worst.
yeah. But again, this will link back to your Mars retrograde story in Leo.
Yep.
Um, and then on the same day, Venus is doing a lot. Venus will sextile Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius at 6 degrees.
Okay, this is helpful.
Mhm.
This can help you smooth over things to have, you know, some sort of conversation that helps you understand someone else's perspective or why they did what they did or, you know, some in general when Venus and Mercury come together, like it's usually like lucky news or like having a really fun social encounter. Um,
Signing
but
contracts.
yeah, signing a contract. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe that's still possible, but maybe it's something from the past because we have Mercury's retrograde here.
I feel like if this was a time when your ex came back, this would be it.
Oh,
Because both Mars and Mercury are retrograde in fire signs, and the
oh
fires,
God.
I feel like Mars and Mercury are trying, you know? Um,
You're so right.
I don't know. That's what it's giving.
Oh my God. We'll report back.
Yeah.
That is a really good delineation.
Yeah. Um, and so on December 15th, we have a full moon in Gemini. The full moon will be at 23 degrees. This is happening at 4:01 a.m. Eastern time or 1 a.m. Pacific time. And later that day, Mercury will station direct. This,
Yes.
you want to say the rest?
Yeah. Well, I just think, first of all, that this is such a big deal because the full moon is ruled by Mercury. So it's
Mhm.
ruled by the stationary Mercury, which full moons always reveal something. And when a planet stations direct, it's like a change in direction. So uh, this full moon in particular, full moon in Geminis usually reveal information. Important conversations come to a climax. So this definitely feels like a big day.
Mhm.
And since it's happening at 23 degrees, it's in the third decan of Gemini.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, that is associated with the Ten of Swords in the tarot. And yeah, I would say I feel like most of the cards in the tarot, I'm able to find some sort of like optimistic, you know, spin on. I can't really do that with the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords is a person with 10 swords laying in their back or like jammed into their back, and there's like blood trails around them. And yes, in the distance, there is a dawn is emerging, a new beginning emerges, but like a literal betrayal, a disappointment, a this is just like the saddest card in the deck.
Mhm. You don't think the Nine of Swords is worse? I think the Nine of Swords is worse, personally. At least like the tens talk about an ending. So, like, if
Mhm.
you feel like you have been betrayed or you're going through a Ten of Swords moment in your life, at least it's like you've hit rock bottom.
True.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm laughing.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. The Nine of Swords is like you're stuck in your own suffering, right? In that anxiety spiral. And the Ten of Swords is like someone else like betrays you and has like broken your heart into a million pieces. So, yeah, they're both doozies. But you're right. This is an ending
Mhm.
and that marks a new beginning. And there is a dawn. That's like the only positive thing in this card is like in the distance, far away, the sun is rising again. So, um, yeah, I think news that you learned today could be jarring, shocking, and possibly disappointing.
Mhm. Yeah. And So I've been thinking a lot about Mercury and Sagittarius and how loud it's been this season because of people's belief systems and needing to project that onto other people. I think because it happened post election. And I'm just saying that mutable signs are double bodied. So there is something about, again, taking the other person's perspective into account when you are preaching. Sagittarius is a preaching sign. And hopefully by the full moon in Gemini, when Mercury goes direct, I feel like a lot of people might start to be apologizing
Mm,
or just like coming to terms with maybe how your own belief systems not, I don't want to say like made you have a 10 of swords moment, but maybe some things that you really like grasped onto in terms of what you were preaching ended up hurting you in the end. I don't know,
mm,
just putting that out there.
that's powerful.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Mercury and Sagittarius is it's like the preaching, right? It's the dogmatic. I know everything, and I'm sorry you don't.
Mm-hmm.
None of
None
us
of
do.
us do. Yep.
So, yeah, that's my preaching for the moment.
And the full moon will be square Neptune. So there's just also this like sensitivity that's going to come through as well. Can also weaken your immune system.
Hmm.
So wear your mask if you're going out, get your hand sani out.
Yes.
Yeah, your vitality can be just a little lower.
Hmm.
And
And
then the
then,
next is it not the next day, but a couple days later on the
yeah.
18th, that's when the sun actually forms a square with Neptune.
Hmm. At 27 degrees. So, as I mentioned, I have this natally, and I'm also going through a Neptune square exactly because my Neptune is at 27 Sagittarius. So, like I mentioned, in the shadow aspect of it, you can fall into addiction. I'm pretty sure I've said this before on here. Matthew Perry had a Sun square Neptune, and you can definitely be in your own delusions, Delululemon. You
Mhm.
can definitely have escapist tendencies. But on the other side of that coin, you have the capacity to tune into a vibration or a sense of feeling that you can't see. So, like, I really like listening to music, classical music, because I don't know what it does to me. It calms me down and it helps me to feel like in my body, in my soul. And again, Sun square Neptune, it's not something that's necessarily going to give you clarity, but your other senses could be heightened.
Yes. I was just gonna say, like, this is the one aspect in astrology that, like, you can't really describe. It's indescribable.
It's indescribable.
Yeah.
I would definitely not do drugs on this day unless
No.
you want that like God experience. But yeah, I don't know. You just hear so many stories like Matthew Perry of dying in these circumstances with substances, and he was overdosed by a doctor, right? And it was on a full moon in Scorpio. And so when these transits happen and you're super sensitive and you have these aspects in your chart, you just don't want to mess with things like that.
Yeah, and it's just a recipe for a bad trip. Like the sun square Neptune is already going to heighten your emotions and your anxieties and your paranoia. And that in itself is usually what gets people to want to escape.
Mhm.
And that's the moment where we actually need to regulate our nervous system and ground. So I was like Captain Stoner before I gave birth. I loved marijuana. I haven't done it since I've had my little tot, but like I'm all for it. I love shrooms. Oh my gosh, amazing time with shrooms.
Mhm.
Like I wanted to become an ant. Like I love them. Biggest fan. But I just think in these moments, this is not the time to turn to some sort of vice. It's a time to be curious about what feelings emerge, to channel your feelings through art or through some sort of spiritual practice rooted in your ancestry, anything that can help ground you.
Mhm. Yeah, I like you. I'm all about the psilocybin, the mushrooms, and I do think they help us gain an understanding of how interconnected we are. But also at the same time, you have to understand like what your intention is for taking these substances. Like, is it to escape? Is it to feel more connected? And so, yeah, just be careful. Also, I don't know why this made me think of this, but did you hear that NASA just disclosed that there are aliens in the ocean?
Yeah. Like, thanks. Can we see them? I think it's crazy how nobody has footage of them. We only have these
Yeah.
grainy videos of the aliens. It's like, are you kidding me? In this
Yeah,
TV?
I know, but I don't know. I don't know why the sun squared Neptune and Pisces. I was like, maybe we'll get to see them.
That would be sweet. That'd be sweet. I saw someone on a TikTok that was like, what, the aliens can't FaceTime? Like, they can't figure that out? Like, yeah, they don't want anything to do with us, and I don't
No,
blame them.
I know.
Slash, it's us in the future. Spoiler alert.
Totally. Oh my God.
That's what I
We
believe.
talked about that, right?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
they found those balloons last year and we're like, that's us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like literally, I think that was us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
um,
gosh.
so December 19th, Venus in Aquarius will trine Jupiter in Gemini. Wow, this is really cute. I really like this aspect, my favorite one of the month. And it happens at 14 degrees
Yep.
because it's my Venus return.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You are gonna have so many blessings. I can't wait to hear.
I'm like, thank you to
That
Jupiter.
that's amazing. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Venus and Jupiter, the two benefics in astrology. When they come together, it's like good vibes, good news, uh, celebration, hanging out with friends. So, a really great time to take a risk, to put yourself out there. Yeah, beautiful energy.
Yeah, I'm very excited about December 19th. I don't know what's going to happen on that day, but after all of these months of really crunchy transits, you're looking for that one.
Yeah. Yes, yes, totally.
Okay, so December 21st, the sun enters Capricorn, and this is the winter solstice.
Mm.
So we are officially in Capricorn season after this point. And do you want to share any practices that you do on like solstices?
Mm. I think I just keep it very basic B. I clean my altars. I say
Mhm.
some prayers. Sometimes I'll write a petition. I like to work with fire, just use a candle. The veils are thin.
Mhm.
So that's definitely a night where I'm like paying extra attention to my dreams, pulling some tarot cards if there are any like main questions that I need guidance on or things I've been like lingering about. I'll just do some divination work.
Mhm.
What about you?
Same. I write in my journal and I really reflect on the last like 3 months from or 6 months, right, from the last solstice. And yeah, because it's a cardinal season, I always try to set intentions, kind of like you would do on a new year. And I think the Capricorn one is special just because the light is coming back and something, I don't know, maybe like my primal instincts is like something's gonna grow.
Mm.
um yeah, I do find it to be a very magical time. This is like when all the witches during pagan times celebrated before it was co-opted by Christianity. But that's my own personal opinion.
No,
Yeah,
it's the truth.
yeah, no, it is the truth. I was just telling my mom like people don't even realize what they're celebrating,
Mm-hmm.
because it was said that Jesus was actually born in the summertime, just based on like the heliacal rise of the stars at the time. And so, like, if that's true, then what are you celebrating on Christmas? It's actually the solstice.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah.
It's not his birthday. Jesus was not a Capricorn. I mean, just even look at basic astrology. He was not a Capricorn.
He's not a Capricorn. I personally think he was a Virgo, but I don't
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
We'll
Okay.
see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so December 24th, Jupiter retrograde in Gemini will square Saturn in Pisces at 14 degrees. And if you think back to August 19th, there was also a square between Jupiter and Saturn, but Saturn was retrograde at that time.
Right.
So now they're flipped.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
This aspect for me was like growing pains,
Mhm.
reality check,
Yeah.
measured action.
Yes.
It's like there could be something that you like really want to make a lot of progress on, or you're feeling really excited about, and you're just coming up against like some roadblocks. But it's
Mhm.
okay. It's all in due time. This is kind of like helps you craft a plan to bring your visions to life.
Yeah, I remember that week because I was constantly getting into fights with my mom. um,
Mm.
because Pisces again, Saturn is transiting my fourth. Jupiter is my chart ruler, but it's in the opposite sign of my seventh house. And then I'm a Sag rising, and Virgo is my 10th. So it was like every time I would put out content, my mom would get mad about it and be like, why are you saying that? And then every time I put out content, I would get so many people in my comment section being like, blah, 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 like arguing with me. And
Mm.
it really did have like that, like the squares of just like me just putting out content was like annoying people.
But oh my gosh, but all your angles were involved. That's like
I know.
so literal.
It
That's
was so
astrology being
literal.
literal.
And it really was like, I really thought at that time, why am I doing this? I really faced a growing pain. I was like, because when Jupiter and Saturn come together, it's go and stop. It's I want to expand, but I can't in some way. And so yeah, I felt very frustrated.
Mm.
That was the feeling.
I have blacked out because I'm sleep deprived. I can't remember anything without looking in my journal. So I'll have to
Oh.
report back. Everything feels like a blur since Sloan arrived. I'm like, every day is like the same. Not the same, but you know what I mean? I can't remember off the top of
I
my head.
feel like you pumped up your content. Like you just like were doing so much. I just remember that.
Maybe oh yeah, that was, yeah, because I had launched my Patreon
Patreon.
in July. So you're right. I was doing more content and I was trying to create more. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, what we're saying is that since it's the second square, I don't know, and like Jupiter's retrograde this time, it could be like maybe you've come up with a solution for the first frustration, but now
Mm.
you're coming to another like um crisis point, you
Some
know?
sort of impasse that
Yeah,
requires maturity and reflection.
yes. Or just being real and being like, this isn't working anymore and
Yep.
you have to pivot. Squares are pivot points.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So okay. December 26th, Mercury and Sagittarius will oppose Jupiter and Gemini for the last time at 13 degrees. And this is the last opposition that we mentioned back in December 4th, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And on the same day, Mercury also forms a square with Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to this.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
I, I I don't want to make anyone fearful, but Jupiter and Saturn together can be grim.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, you see it in a lot of death charts.
The square.
Something, some kind of Jupiter and Saturn aspects, major aspects, whether it's like the chart ruler or the moon or something like that. Not to say that for anyone to worry personally in their chart, but I would just wonder on a larger scale, is
Mm-hmm.
there someone prominent, maybe a mercurial figure,
Mm-hmm.
international figure who passes around this time?
Mm. Interesting what we said in the beginning about okay, so not going into conspiracy theories, but I do believe this is just my gut instinct that a political figure is going to be unalived.
Mm,
And I don't know. I don't know who it is, but I just feel it in my bones. So maybe this is the day.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And in general, I would just say this is not the best day for communication.
Mm-hmm.
People will be prickly, people will be dogmatic, and fights can definitely take place.
Mm-hmm. What I've learned about planets in mutual reception. So Mercury is in Jupiter. Mercury is in Jupiter sign and Jupiter is in Mercury sign. That's mutual reception. Is it ties the themes of the houses together. So wherever you have Sagittarius and Gemini, which are up like sister signs, those topics are present all month long with
Hmm.
these oppositions. And then I've obviously like Saturn and Pisces, right? Because Saturn is in Jupiter sign. So there's something about these three areas of your life, which are all mutable signs that are tied to each other.
Yep, very true.
Mm-hmm.
This will be this will definitely be like a main event for the month that you'll want to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And on December 27th, Venus in Aquarius will square Uranus in Taurus at 23 degrees. And if you remember in the beginning of the month, Venus in Capricorn was trine to Uranus in Taurus.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
square.
I like when Venus squares Uranus. I think it's fun and it can be unsettling and unnerving, but it's all about taking risks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can just be really, really liberating. And the surprises and shocks that come through can be very exciting. I think, especially because Uranus is in Taurus and Venus is at home in Taurus, there is reception one way there, right? Or no, I guess technically they say Uranus's sign is Aquarius, right? For modern rulers. So maybe there is mutual reception there. And this can be fun.
Mm-hmm. Was it a Venus square Uranus transit when you showed your butt on the internet?
That's right.
Why
So,
is that
yeah.
always like it's like in a file in my brain?
Yeah. My butt was looking good. Pre-baby, come on.
Oh my God, you were wearing like Gucci tights and
The
you were
Gucci tights. Yeah. I've since broke the Gucci tights because I wore them when I was pregnant. I was like, oh, these will fit. Oh, big mistake, big mistake. Um, but yeah, put your butt on the internet, take a sultry picture, update your headshot, shoot your shot with someone. This could also be a day where you're like running into people or hanging into people who are like unexpected. And like maybe it's super fun, but then you don't see them again for like 10 years.
very quirky relationships or like being involved with people you wouldn't normally hang around with.
Mm-hmm. Unexpected contracts and opportunities.
Mhm.
So
So so watch out for Stephanie's Instagram because anytime there's a Uranus,
I might put my postpartum butt on the internet.
like
So stay tuned.
anytime there's a Uranus aspect, she does something.
I do. I do. I do something wild. I love it. It's fun.
You always equate Uranus to like career moments.
Well, for me, it's my 10th
Oh,
house.
right. Okay.
So it is very like, taking up space,
Yes,
all that kind of stuff.
that's
And,
true.
and then the 29th, Chiron retrograde ends in Aries at 19 degrees. And this is the same degree as the solar eclipse in Aries that took place in, I think, April 8th of this year.
Mm-hmm. Which feels like a lifetime ago, by the way. I'm like, what even happened?
Good God. I was like I had a 1 week old baby. Yeah.
That's true. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh. Yeah. So Chiron and Aries, Aries is the archetype of the warrior, of the pioneer, of self sovereignty of the individual, but it's also war
Mm-hmm.
and aggressiveness. And Chiron is the wound. So I don't know. I'm just like looking ahead in my brain to all of the Aries activation next February and March. And I'm like, is there a wound we should be healing in Aries before all that happens?
Well, it's the US's Chiron return.
That's true.
So,
I'm nervous.
oh, yeah, nervous. I mean, 2025's astrology is like biting my nails. Yeah,
Ugh.
it's it's gonna deliver some major shakeups.
Mhm.
Um, I think in terms of our personal lives, this is a turning point in your healing journey. Similar themes and topics from that April eclipse might be coming back up. But it's an opportunity to pivot, to integrate some wisdom from your past pain and to move forward in a new direction.
Mhm. Yeah, that was a Chiron eclipse, right? Because it had Chiron in it. And
Mm-hmm.
I do believe Chiron in Aries is healing the wounded masculine and looking at the ways in which you maybe have also caused harm to others and
Mm-hmm.
how, yeah, I think, I mean, we all have feminine and masculine energy, right? And right now, the wounded part of the masculine is really on display. And so I think the Chiron retrograde also was just showing that at a massive global scale of what happens when wounded masculine leaders are in power and the kinds of things that happen to this earth, like our climate crisis and all the different things that are happening, the poly crisis. And so hopefully, we're starting to integrate all of that wisdom, like you said.
Yeah.
Because Chiron is the wounded healer, but the teacher also.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you might be feeling a little bit more sensitive on that day, or the news might be a little bit more tender as well that comes through.
Mm-hmm. On December 30th, we have a new moon in Capricorn, and it's going to be at 9 degrees. And the ruler of the new moon is Saturn, which is in Pisces. Uh, so we had a new moon on January 11th. So we started 2024 with a new moon in Capricorn at 20 degrees, but Pluto was still in Capricorn. And so this is the full moon. This is the first new moon where there's no Pluto.
Love it.
Ever.
Love it. And to your point, the main aspect that's taking place during this lunation is the new moon is forming a sextile with its ruler, Saturn in Pisces. So this is actually a really delicious new moon. This is for the people who like to set New Year's intentions and resolutions with the Gregorian calendar. Us Astro girlies are all about the spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere, but you do you. If you want to set an intention, this is a delicious day to do it. Don't do it January 1st, but December 30th is a great day to do it. And I think when I see new moons in Capricorn, I think this is also a really important moment for reflection and being proud of yourself and celebrating your wins. Because a lot of people are always associate Capricorn with like ambition and the 5-year plan and like, what are you going to build? What legacy do you want to leave behind? you can't do any of that if you don't create space to celebrate how far you've come.
Mhm. Yes. I love that. And I love that it feels like a new era because it's the first new moon in Capricorn without Pluto in what, 16 years?
Very long time.
What?
2008.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2008. So it finally feels like this is the end of the Pluto in Capricorn era, which is like yay, but like eek. Um,
Yeah.
I did a video about Pluto in Aquarius and how I don't know. Like I'm happy for my cardinal placements, but I'm a little wary for my fixed sign placements. And somebody asked in the comment section, because I said make an offering to Pluto.
Mm.
And I wanted to save that question for you because you give offerings to Pluto. So do you
Yes.
mind sharing what some of those are?
Yeah. So, first of all, if you're going to make an offer to Pluto, I think the best thing to do is Pluto is the lord of the underworld. So, make sure that your offering is under something,
Mhm.
whether you leave it under your bed, under your house, under your car, just under something symbolic.
Mhm.
Um, I have offered so many things to Pluto. I have chopped off all of my hair and offered it to Pluto. I have uh, given literal money to Pluto. I have given my blood to Pluto. I've done a blood sacrifice
I'm gonna
to
say
Pluto.
blood.
Um, I have a lot of like trinkets. Like, obvious, I have like a billion altars, and some of those things retire. Not everything needs to stay on your altar forever. And so I will put those and offer them up to Pluto.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I my first answer to this person was to build your own relationship to Pluto because
Mhm.
Pluto is trying to help you descend into something like you said the underworld or under something, and so my first thing is to ask Pluto, what is it that you
Mm.
want? Like, what is it that you're offering? And then I said fear and blood.
Oh my God. Yes.
Um,
I usually, that's like such a better tip. Let's go with that. Ask Pluto. But I have usually, if it's something that I don't really want to part with, then I give it to Pluto. Like if
Mhm.
it's something where I'm like, oh, I kind of just no, I still want to hang on to this. I know that I have to surrender and release it and give it to
Yes.
Pluto. So that's also something I use to like, but asking Pluto is way better. One other thing, don't start this practice and quit. That'll
Yes.
piss Pluto off.
Yes.
It's got to be
Yes.
consistent. It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be every month. But you need to have some sort of consistent relationship. Because this is the god of the underworld.
And you specifically do that because you have a Sun square Pluto in your natal chart. But like, did you ramp it up when Pluto was in Capricorn or?
No, there was a full moon in Capricorn that was conjunct Pluto. I want to say I really feel like it was 2022 or maybe 2021. And I don't know, something chaotic and horrific was going on in my life. And I was just like, what do I do? And that was what I did.
You petitioned Pluto.
I petitioned Pluto. I was like, we've got to start working together because you're never going to leave me alone. I have it as a fixed sign, some people when they have Pluto contacts and it's a mutable sign or it's a cardinal sign, the energy can wane or it will be like one big event that happens in their life. But if it's a fixed sign, Pluto's sticking around.
Yeah, that's so true. So I only recognize Pluto, the transit of Pluto during my Pluto square. It became very, very magnified. So, like, even if you don't have this natally and you start experiencing Pluto's transit over like your sun or your moon or over your ascendant, or you're going through your Pluto square, which is like 40 to 42, right? Like 40 to 41 or whatever. And so Pluto was transiting my second house. And what happens is like Pluto it like magnifies your fears. And as a response, if you're not like going into your shadow, you start to try to control your fear, which only magnifies it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the process is to release control. And so, as a response to my fear, I started donating money every month to, like, let's say I had $100 to like just donate to anybody, and I would either find a cause or multiple causes. But anytime I felt that fear come up, I would like remember that, like, oh, the fear is coming up, but I can't control it. So I have to give it away. And so that's how I dealt with my Pluto transit. And what was crazy, not crazy about it was that once I gave it away, it would come right back to me. And
Mm.
so Pluto, again, being the lord of the underworld, but it was about power, it like automatically showed me where the power really was, which was in me.
Yes. Yes. And Pluto is the god of riches because in the earth, we have such rich resources and minerals. And so there really is something about when you surrender, when you let go, when you engage with your fears in your shadow, and you do what you're avoiding or fearful of, Pluto's like, I got you, and usually brings you a gift.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I really wanted to talk about that because I feel like I've been projecting some of my Plutonian fears onto people because
Oh, it happens.
I know in 2029 Pluto's coming for my moon. So like I'm already like, how can I release this fear and surrender already? And it's it's only been
It, so I had Pluto conjunct my descendant already, and
Mhm.
it's going to come back again in like a couple weeks, I think. And it wasn't actually bad. It was actually beautiful. And
Oh.
so I think you just have to stay open.
Mhm.
You just have to stay open. And usually with Pluto and life in general, there's that duality. So you will see so many amazing things that come through, but you may also be spending some time in the shadow.
Totally. Thank you for sharing that with your Pluto experience in Aquarius.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap up December? I can't believe we're already December.
Just buckle up, bitches. Good luck. And report back. Please let us know in the comments. How does this manifest for you? Like, share, support our podcast, pay us. I don't know, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening and make sure to come back next month for January 20.
Ah! Crazy. All right. We'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.